Greetings, my friends, and welcome back to the archives. One of the things that we love to cover most here on the channel is that of the topic of the ancient Sith Lords. One of the most formidable and powerful of these ancient Sith Lords has been none other than one of my favourite, that of Darth Nihilus, the Force wound and Lord of Hunger that brought about the first great Jedi Purge, that would be replicated only some 3,000 years later. We know the story of Nihilus quite well, as well as his unfathomable command over the Force, being perhaps the most powerful Sith Lord to have ever lived, with his only rival being that of Valkorion and Sidious. Darth Nihilus was a literal virgin in the Force. However, Darth Nihilus possessed a Sith artifact that he bound his very spirit to, that I would like to note today, that being the mask of Lord Nihilus himself. The same mask that would inquire Crate to ask how Nihilus bound his essence within his own very armour and his mask. So, my friends, join us as we travel on a 5-year escapade into the unknown regions to discover what truly happened to the mysteries and mysticism of Darth Nihilus's mask. The Mask of Darth Nihilus, or Mask of Nihilus, was one of the pieces of the Sith armour that the Sith Lord Darth Nihilus had bound himself using the Force in an effort to retain a semblance of physical form, allowing him to both use a lightsaber as well as Force lightning, an ability he was quite renowned for due to its crimson coloration. Darth Nihilus had been one of the few who had survived the activation of the mass shadow generator while on the surface of Malachor 5, one of roughly only 5 survivors during the last battle of the Mandalorian Wars. The Battle of Malachor 5. This experience left him with an insatiable need to feed on the Force energies of beings around him. And as the being who was also a survivor, who was just a couple of meters away from him, awoke staggering, weak, Nihilus drained his essence and slowly fed his hunger. Eventually, this hunger began to erode and decay his physical forms. In an effort to keep himself alive so he could continue to satiate his hunger, he bound his spirit to his armor, robes, and mask, manipulating the dark side of the Force as well as Sith alchemy, as taught by Darth Trail. At the end of the first Jedi Purge, Nihilus was murdered aboard his flagship, the Ravager, by Mitra Surik, his former apprentice Visas Ma, and the current Mandalore, Canduras Oro, leaving his mask as a gruesome reminder of his reign as the Lord of Hunger, and one of the darkest periods the Star Wars galaxy has ever had to wrestle from. This mask was considered to be a Sith artifact that encouraged the wearers to slowly destroy themselves for greater power. The lost mask of Nihilus was imbued with dark energy of the Sith Lord, allowing any who wore the ghost white mask to have the power to wield the Force as if they were a very Sith apprentice. Later, the mask was recovered from the crashed smuggling ship Nashugata on the planet Relic. Sometime between 3,960 BBY and 3,952 BBY, the ravages of the insatiable dark hunger of the Force destroyed Darth Nihilus' corporeal form to the point where he was compelled to bind his life force into his ballowing black robes and armor, including a facial mask, in order to avoid death and give himself a palpable form, which allowed him to wield a lightsaber and continue and further his mastery of the Force. Darth Nihilus' mask continued to serve its purposes until its hands at the Jedi exile, when he was killed by her and her companions in 3951 BBY. For the next 4 millennia, rumors spread like tremors across the galaxy concerning the mask's immense power. It was said that the mask was invested with the dark side of the Force, and if an individual who was not Force sensitive was to don the mask, that being would be able to wield the Force as a Sith apprentice. If, however, a Jedi or Sith was to wear the mask, proficiency in a variety of additional Force powers, always including but not limited to dark side tendencies, were instantly acquired. However, it was cautioned that the dark influence of the mask propelled the wearer towards acts of self-destruction in the pursuit of greater power. I have a variety of theories revolving this mask, which I'll run through pretty quickly. The first theory is that if prolonged exposure with the mask, and if you don it for prolonged periods of time, it will allow Darth Nihilus' spirit to fully converse around your body, very similar to how the Mer talisman worked. Carnus Mer, the founder of the talisman, created the Mer talisman in an attempt to live forever. Nihilus similarly bound his essence to this artifact. And personally, I personally believe that if someone was to wear it for years and years, that Darth Nihilus will be able to retain his physical form, in dominating their wills and becoming the Lord of Hunger once again. There are various folklore stories that spread regarding Nihilus. Although this is personally speculation, it has been spread and partially canonized in regards to legends. Darth Nihilus. It was stated that his mask was found by a band of pirates on a backwater planet. On this planet, Darth Nihilus continued his machinations, and eventually, Darth Krayt would inquire of Nihilus's holocron over a millennia after the Sith Lord's death of how he actually survived, and in reality, and actuality, how in the end he was able to bind his spirit to his mask and robes in order to live forever. Krayt, of course, desired to live forever, very similar to Nihilus. However, Nihilus only wanted to live together in order to study the dark side of the Force, as well as to satiate his hunger. The dark side was his ally and his master. He believed that he owned the Force and that he was a pure manifestation of it, and he was perhaps the second most powerful being in the entirety of the Old Republic era, with his only rival being Tenebrae. So my acolytes, what did you think of this video? This was a rather short video, but certainly one of the favourite I've ever uploaded. Darth Nihilus was an exceptionally formidable being who was capable of exerting his will on a planetary scale, being able to strip entire planets of the Force energy itself in order to augment his own power. He's recently starred as the primary antagonist of my Into the Multiverse Season 1, which I heavily implore you to check out if you haven't yet. Anyway, my acolytes, keep your wits about you. I'll see you in a galaxy far, far away, and kneel before the dragon of Zakul.